All right, guys, so for this next part of training, we're going to talk about how to get referrals, how to get a ton of recommendations. Now, here's what's great. The referral approach that we have is really easy, and you can just read it word for word, but it's really powerful to have it memorized. So we're going to go through how to get a ton of referrals on your appointments, how to make sure that it's really easy once you get the referrals to call those people, and how to always have a ton of people to call. So, first of all, let's talk about why we get referrals on our job here. You know, the customers already love Cutco, but once they really like you as well, they're gonna feel a lot more confident. You gotta think about every real job out there, whether it's a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant or an electrician. All of their first customers are not retrieved by advertisement or, their company gives it to them. All of our first appointments for them are gonna be through referrals from people they know, just like with Cutco. So we're teaching you this skill that you can use for life. Our recommendation approach is really low key, and what I've noticed is that the second I got it memorized, not only did the number of referrals that I got started to increase, but also the quality of referrals. When my customers saw how confident I was in asking for the recommendations, they started feeling more confident giving me the recommendations to people whose opinion they cared about, whose opinion they trusted, because they knew that if I called them and I was so confident, that I'd make a good impression. So this approach is awesome, and here's what's great. You want to get referrals from everybody, not just the people that bought Cutco, but people that didn't buy too. My biggest sale, my first summer, over $2,000, was a recommendation from a customer that didn't buy anything. In fact, at the end of the demo, they told me they didn't think they knew anybody that would buy, but I'll give you a couple of names just in case it helps you out. They wrote down Margaret Hampelman. She lived about an hour away from me. This appointment was something that I wasn't really planning on doing, but you know what? I figured, why not do it? And she bought over $2,000. She bought our ultimate set. She gave me a ton of referrals. That ended up being $3,000 to $4,000 of sales just because this approach is so good. So let's go ahead and teach you how to get referrals. Open up your training manual to the recommendation approach, and let's go ahead and see why it works so well. So first of all, let's start from the top. Mrs. Jones, how did you like my demo? Well, there's one more very important part, and here's how you can really help me out. I get paid every time I show Cutco, but I can only show Cutco to people that I've been personally recommended to. So what I need you to do is go ahead and put me on speakerphone if I'm not already, access your contacts, and let me jot down the first 5 to 10,000 names. Just kidding, 7 to 10 would be awesome. I'm not necessarily looking for people you think would buy, just nice people like you that are willing to take a look. I have a pen and paper. Let's start with the names and go back and get the numbers later. Now, once they've written down 3 or 4, I start telling them about the sponsorship program. And I say, this is awesome. By the way, if you can get me up to 5 names, you can become a sponsor. And once I get 50 sponsors, I can win some free Cutco that'll help me with my goals. Now, once that person has gotten to 6 and even 7, I tell them if they get to 10 recommendations, they become a double sponsor. So whether it's 5 to get you 1 sponsor or 10 that's a double sponsor, those 25 double sponsors helps you get closer to win some free Cutco. How nice is it going to be to get some free stuff that you can use for yourself? So let's go through this first part of the approach before we have you practice this. Now again, you're going to ask for recommendations at the end of the demo, after you've collected the payment information, but before you wrote up the order online. That way there's still plenty of time for them to have the recommendation written down, but you don't have to worry about them rushing you off the phone because the payment has already been processed. So first question you ask is, Mrs. Jones, how did you like my demo? The only thing that you'll ever hear at this point is you did a great job. You talked about your goals. I think you were wonderful. I couldn't even tell that this was your first appointment. Great. Well, there's one more very important part, and this is how you can really help me out. Again, letting them know that even if they bought Cutco, this is more important for you and the long term of your position. I get paid every time I show Cutco, but I can only show Cutco to people I have been personally recommended to. Again, we don't want to say sell. This is just to take the pressure off of them to only think about buyers. We're looking for lookers, not people just that would only be interested in buying. So what I need you to do is go ahead and put me on speakerphone if I'm not already, access your contacts, and let me jot down the first 5 to 10,000 names. So we want them to be looking at their cell phone and at their contacts before they decide how many people that they actually know. And we say 5 to 10,000 because it's kind of a little bit of a ridiculous number, but it makes 7 to 10 seem a lot smaller. Haha, just kidding. 7 to 10 would be awesome. I'm not necessarily looking for people you think would buy, just nice people like you. Wow, that's so clutch. Nice people like you, that's a really nice compliment, and people are always a lot more likely to help you out if you compliment them first. I have a pen and paper. Let's start with the names and get back to the numbers. This just helps them break the barrier of, okay, how long is this gonna take me? Can I send it to you later? You kind of prevented that from happening by saying, I got a pen and paper ready. Let's just start with the names and we can get the numbers later. Now, obviously, you wanna help your customers come up with more names. On the opposite page of your recommendation approach, you'll notice that it says ideas for getting more names or thought joggers. These are suggestions you can give your customer to make sure that they can come up with way more names than they normally can. So Mrs. Jones, how about your sister? How about your neighbor? How about someone from church? Now, one at a time, helping them come up with this part. You might get a couple of objection handlers. How do you handle the I'll email them to you later? Well, it's really simple. That would be awesome. Mrs. Jones, I really appreciate that, and I understand you have good intentions. However, a few people have told me that, and I still haven't gotten their email. So if you can get me a couple off the top of your head right now, and you can just send me the rest of them later, it would really help me out. So who are maybe 1 or 2 people that you think might be nice? I think we all know that once they've written down a couple of people, it's a lot easier to get them to write down 5 or 10. So let's go ahead and have you role play this approach to yourself. I want you to practice this 5 times out loud. This will get most of it memorized, but the rest you'll have to do on your own. Let's go ahead and role play this right now. All right, now that you've gotten a chance to role play this, there's one extra part that'll really help you out. That's called qualifying your recommendations. You want to know a little bit more about each person you're calling, and you can get a ton of that information from the person that's in front of you right now. So here's what I would say. Mrs. Jones, is it okay if I ask you just a couple of quick questions about these referrals to make it easier when I call them? They'll probably say yes. Okay, great. So how do you know Susie? What's the best time to reach them? Day or evening? And what's their spouse's name? So how do you know them? You know, if they tell you they're their friend, well, do you guys work together, or maybe know each other from church, or maybe you guys know each other because your kids play soccer together? So this is the deal. These referrals are a lot easier to call if you know a lot more about that person. What's the best time to reach them? This is designed to help you save time. If you know all of those people are stay-at-home moms, well, you can call them during the day. If they all have a job, you can call them in the evening. Most of it's going to be a combination of the two. Asking what their spouse's name, well, that kind of pre-qualifies that person. If the person doesn't have a spouse, they're not married, you might not call them as quickly as the ones that are married. You might want to call them all, but prioritize the ones that are the married couples, 30 to 60, obviously own a home. The last question I always ask is, Mrs. Jones, if you were me, who would you call first? All of your customers will know the answer to that question. They're going to say, you know what, Susie, you got to call her first. She's going to buy everything. Or this guy, he loves to hunt and fish. His wife, she's the one that bakes though and cooks. So you probably want to have both of them there listening to the presentation. These qualification questions are going to help you turn these leads into easy people to call. Last but not least, Mrs. Jones, I'm going to forward you a text message. If you could send this to your friends as an introduction, I'm sure they'd appreciate it so they know who I am. So on the bottom of the recommendation page, you'll notice there's a text message you can send to your customers that they can forward to all of their friends. This heads up text message will make it so when you call these referrals and you say, hi, this is Damien. I was actually visiting with your sister Samantha. Did she tell you I was going to give you a call? She'll say, oh yeah, that's right. She did mention you were calling. And you're like, great. And then you move into the recommendation approach, which we will teach you in advanced training. So again, by sending them this text message, it helps the person you're calling feel more comfortable. They're prepared. They're not as surprised by the call. And every single person in your first weekend is going to be nice enough to send that text message for you. By doing that now, it makes it easier for the people that you'll do demos with subsequently to feel comfortable sending out that text message too, because their friends send it to them and it helped them feel a lot more comfortable. So I want to go ahead and have you guys role play two things right now. Number one is the how to handle the I'll email them to you later. And I want you to I want you to role play also asking for qualifying questions and finishing with the fact that you're going to send them a text message. Practice that 5 times each too. By doing both parts together, you should have the majority of it memorized, and by the end of the weekend, you'll have the whole thing word for word. Referrals are so important. Make this a priority and get this to be the part of the job that you are the best as far as what's great, as far as what you can do selling Cutco. So get this to be part of the job that you are the absolute best at, and you'll see how quickly you can actually get your first and second and third promotions because you have so many people that you can call. All right, guys, let's go ahead and role play this now.